The silver ship moved silently through space above the small blue planet. Inside the vessel, Captain Zextar stood tall on his 6 thin legs, watching the world below through the viewing screen. His insect-like eyes studied the green and brown patches that covered the land masses. This was just another routine mission for the Galactic Council exploration team. Dr. Velnara floated near the captain, her purple tentacles moving gracefully in the ship's artificial water environment. She had studied hundreds of primitive worlds during her long career. This planet called Earth looked no different from the others. The readings showed a young species that had barely learned to use simple tools. "Another Category 7 world," Velnara said, her voice bubbling through the water speakers. "The inhabitants show basic intelligence but remain very primitive. They fight among themselves and damage their own environment." Zextar clicked his mandibles in agreement. The humans below seemed unremarkable. They lived in small groups, built simple structures, and showed no signs of advanced technology. Their bodies appeared weak and fragile compared to most galactic species. They had no natural armor, claws, or enhanced strength. "Begin standard observation protocol," the captain ordered. "We will study them for 3 cycles, then move to the next system." On the other side of the ship, Security Officer Mordak checked his equipment with all 4 of his massive arms. The Brutani warrior stood 8 feet tall, his thick gray skin covered in natural armor plates. He had never encountered a species on these primitive worlds that could pose any threat to his kind. Most of them ran away when they saw him. Little Pip-10 scurried between the larger crew members on his small legs. The Cerebran's huge brain filled most of his tiny body, making him the smartest being on the ship. He carried scanning devices that could analyze any life form from a safe distance. His job was to catalog the species and determine if they had any useful qualities. "Prepare the landing craft," Zextar commanded. "We need biological samples and behavioral data." Far below on the frozen surface of Earth, Jake Collins stepped outside his small research station. Cold wind hit his face as he checked the weather instruments mounted on poles around his building. Snow crunched under his boots as he walked between the devices, reading numbers and writing notes on his clipboard. Jake had been alone at the Arctic Research Station for 6 months, studying ice patterns and climate changes. He was 34 years old, with short brown hair and a beard that helped protect his face from the cold. Before becoming a scientist, he had served in the Army for 8 years. The military training still showed in the way he moved and stayed, alert to his surroundings. The isolation never bothered Jake. He enjoyed the quiet of the wilderness and the important work he was doing. His radio kept him connected to the outside world, and supply planes brought him food and equipment every few weeks. He had enough supplies to last through the long winter. As Jake finished his measurements, he noticed something strange in the sky. A bright light moved among the stars, too slow to be a meteor but too fast to be a plane. He watched it for several minutes before it disappeared behind the mountains. Probably just a satellite, he thought. But something about it felt different. Inside, the alien ship, the crew prepared for their mission to the surface. They had chosen a landing site far from any human settlements, in a region where they could work without being discovered. The ship's computers had identified the nearest human as a single individual living in a small structure several miles away. "One human male," Pip-10 reported, studying his scanner readings. "Age approximately 35 standard years. Basic life signs show good health, but unremarkable physical capabilities. He appears to be some kind of researcher or observer." Velnara made notes in her datapad. "Perfect for our studies. We can observe his reactions when we begin our biological surveys. His isolation means no other humans will interfere with our work." The landing craft separated from the main ship and descended toward Earth's surface. Its advanced stealth systems made it invisible to human detection methods. The small vessel landed in a valley hidden behind ice-covered hills, only a Few miles from Jake's research station, Zextar led the team as they stepped onto the frozen ground. The cold air meant nothing to his hardy species, and his environmental suit provided additional protection. Mordak scanned the area for threats, but his sensors showed only small local animals that posed no danger. Pip-10 immediately began, taking soil and air samples. "This world is remarkably peaceful," Mordak commented. "The dominant species shows no signs of advanced weapons or defenses. Even their lone settlements have minimal protection." Dr. Velnara extended her tentacles toward the distant lights that marked Jake's research station. "We will begin with passive observation. The human's isolated location makes him an ideal subject for behavioral study. We can monitor his daily routines and reactions to minor environmental changes." The alien team set up their equipment in the hidden valley. Advanced sensors could track the human's movements from miles away, while recording devices would capture every detail of his behavior. They expected to spend a few days gathering data before departing for their next assignment. Jake continued his evening routine, unaware that he was being watched. He cooked a simple dinner, updated his research logs, and checked his radio for messages from the outside world. Everything seemed normal, but his military training had taught him to trust his instincts. Something felt different about this night. Outside, the aurora borealis painted green and blue lights across the dark sky. Jake stepped onto his small porch to watch the display, breathing in the crisp, cold air. The beauty of the northern lights never failed to amaze him, even after months of seeing them almost every night. As he watched the dancing lights, Jake noticed his electronic equipment inside the station was acting strangely. Radio static filled. The speakers and his computer screen flickered with interference. He had seen similar problems during solar storms, but the space weather reports had predicted calm conditions. Miles away, the alien observers recorded every detail of the humans' activities. To them, Jake appeared to be just another primitive creature following simple daily patterns. They had no idea that his trained senses were already detecting signs that something unusual was happening in his territory. The stage was set for an encounter that would change everything the aliens thought they knew about humanity. The aliens had been on Earth for 2 days when disaster struck their mission. During their descent through the atmosphere, the landing craft had suffered damage that none of them noticed at first. A small crack in the biocontainment section grew larger each hour, weakened by the planet's different atmospheric pressure. Deep in the ship's holding area, something stirred in the darkness. The Nexurath had been captured on the death world of Kalarthex after killing an entire scientific team. Standing 8 feet tall on powerful legs, the creature was pure predator. Its black scales could turn aside most weapons, while razor-sharp claws could slice through metal. Worst of all, it possessed a cruel intelligence that made it more dangerous than any mindless beast. The containment field that held the monster prisoner flickered once, then died completely. Red emergency lights bathed the holding area as alarms began to sound throughout the ship. The Nexurath tested the weakened barrier with one massive claw, then smashed through it completely. Pip-10 was the first to die. The small Cerebran had been checking the ship's systems when the creature found him in a narrow corridor. His huge brain made him incredibly smart, but his tiny body could not run fast enough. The Nexurath killed him with a single swipe of its claws, then moved deeper into the ship. Captain Zextar heard the screams over the communication system and rushed toward the landing craft with Mordak close behind. They found Softleaf, the gentle plant-like engineer, torn apart in the engine room. The peaceful being had tried to hide among the machinery, but the Predator's keen senses had found her anyway. "Containment breach in Section 4, Velnara's voice crackled through the speakers. "The Nexurath has escaped and killed 2 crew members. It's heading for the outer hull." Mordak raised his heavy plasma rifle, scanning the corridors for movement. Even with his warrior training and advanced weapons, he felt a chill of fear. He had fought the creatures of Kalarthex before and knew how deadly they could be. We need to seal the ship and activate the emergency systems. But they were too late. The Nexurath had already found the ship's exit and smashed through the emergency locks. It stood for a moment in the doorway, breathing the cold earth air and testing the new scents that filled its nostrils. Then it leapt down from the ship and disappeared into the frozen wilderness. Captain Zextar stared at the damaged doorway in horror. Releasing an apex predator on a primitive world violated every Galactic Council law. If the creature bred or caused an ecological disaster, his entire species could face punishment. Worse yet, their damaged weapon systems meant they had no way to stop it from a safe distance. "Track it," he ordered Velnara. "We must recapture the beast before it can cause more damage." Dr. Velnara deployed her sensing equipment and began, following the creature's trail. The Nexurath left clear signs of its passage through the snow and ice. Broken trees marked where it had tested its strength, while deep claw marks showed where it had sharpened its weapons on stone and metal. Miles away, Jake Collins noticed that the local wildlife had gone completely silent. No birds called from. The trees, and even the small Arctic foxes that usually played near his station, had vanished. In his military days, he had learned that nature's sudden quiet often meant danger was approaching. He stepped outside to check his perimeter, carrying a flashlight and his emergency radio. The beam of light showed nothing unusual, but his trained senses detected something wrong. The snow around his station had been disturbed by something much larger than the local animals. Jake knelt beside a strange mark in the snow. It looked like a footprint, but unlike anything he had seen before. The print was huge, with what appeared to be claw marks at the front. Whatever had made it walked on two legs and weighed far more than any known Arctic predator. The alien team tracked the Nexurath through the wilderness, staying well behind to avoid detection. Their sensors showed that the creature was moving in a wide circle, learning about its new environment and testing the local life forms. It had killed several small animals, apparently more for sport than food. "The beast is adapting quickly," Velnara reported. "It's studying the local ecosystem and establishing a hunting territory. If we don't stop it soon, it will begin to see this entire region as its domain." Mordak checked his weapons again, wishing they had brought heavier equipment. The plasma rifle in his hands could wound the Nexurath, but probably not kill it. The creature's armored hide had evolved to survive the energy weapons of advanced civilizations. "There's something else," Velnara continued, studying her readings. "The creature has detected the human's presence. It's moving toward his location." Captain Zextar felt his mandibles click with anxiety. They had planned to observe the human from a distance, gathering data for their scientific reports. Now their escaped prisoner was about to encounter him directly. The primitive human would be completely helpless against such a monster. "We should warn him," Mordak suggested, his warrior's honor making him uncomfortable with watching an innocent being die. "Impossible," Zextar replied. "First contact protocols forbid direct interaction with primitive species. We must observe and record what happens." Jake found more signs of the unknown creature as he expanded his search. Trees had been marked at a height of nearly 8 feet, and several had deep scratches that went completely through the bark. Whatever was out there was big, strong, and marking its territory like a wild animal. He returned to his station and tried to radio for help, but the same interference that had been bothering his equipment for days made communication impossible. The supply plane wasn't due for another 2 weeks, and the nearest human settlement was 200 miles away across dangerous terrain. Jake checked his supplies and weapons. He had a hunting rifle with limited ammunition, basic survival gear, and his military training. If something dangerous was hunting in his area, he would have to deal with it alone. The Nexurath moved closer to the research station as darkness fell. Its enhanced senses could detect the human's scent from miles away, along with the complex chemical signatures of his technology and supplies. The creature had never encountered a human before, but its predatory instincts recognized Jake as the dominant life form in this territory. On Kalarthex, the Nexurath had always killed the strongest prey first, eliminating potential threats before hunting the weaker creatures. This human's isolation and the scent markers around his territory identified him as the local alpha. He would be the first to die. The alien observers watched through their sensors as the deadly predator approached Jake's station. They had expected this encounter to last only a few minutes, providing them with valuable data about both species. None of them suspected that they were about to witness something that would change their understanding of humanity forever. Jake stood on his porch, looking out into the darkness. Every instinct told him that something was watching him from the shadows. He had felt the same sensation during combat missions, when enemy snipers had him in their sights. Death was coming for him through the Arctic night, and he was completely alone. The storm hit Jake's research station just after midnight, bringing howling winds and thick snow that made visibility nearly impossible. Inside the small building, Jake sat awake at his desk, cleaning his hunting rifle and checking his ammunition. The strange signs he had found around his territory told him that something dangerous was coming, and the storm would trap them both in this frozen wilderness. Miles away, the alien observation team struggled with their own problems. The blizzard had grounded their aircraft and was interfering with their long-range sensors. Captain Zexitar paced nervously in the temporary shelter they had erected, knowing that the Nexurath was still out there somewhere in the storm. "We're getting limited readings," Dr. Velnara reported, her tentacles dancing over the control panels. "The creature is definitely moving toward the human's location, but the storm is blocking our detailed scans." Mordak stood guard at the shelter entrance, his 4 arms holding different weapons. Even the veteran warrior felt uneasy, knowing that the galaxy's most dangerous predator was loose in such conditions. The Nexurath would be nearly impossible to track in the blizzard, and it could attack from any direction. The Nexurath moved through the storm like a living shadow. The freezing wind and snow meant nothing to its armored hide, while its enhanced senses could track the human's scent even through the worst weather. It had spent the last 2 days learning about this new environment, testing the local animals, and finding them weak and defenseless. Now it approached the source of the strongest scent in its territory. The creature could smell the human's fear, the metal of his weapons, and the complex chemicals that marked him as the dominant predator in this region. On Kalarthex, such encounters always ended the same way. Jake heard something moving outside, his station around 3 in the morning. At first he thought it might be the wind knocking debris against his building, but the sounds had a pattern that suggested intelligence. Something was circling his station, testing the walls and windows. He moved carefully to the window and peered through the frost-covered glass. Lightning from the storm lit up the landscape for brief moments, but he could see nothing moving in the swirling snow. The sounds continued, getting closer to the main door. The Nexurath studied the human's shelter with predatory patience. It could sense the warm-blooded creature inside, hear his elevated heartbeat, and smell his growing anxiety. The building was stronger than the simple nests most prey species built, but not strong enough to stop a determined attack. The creature tested the walls with its claws, finding them solid but not impenetrable. The door appeared to be the weakest point, made of wood and metal that could be broken with enough force. It decided to strike at dawn, when the storm was at its weakest, and the human would be tired from staying awake all night. Jake spent the remaining hours before sunrise preparing for battle. He moved furniture to create barriers and choke points inside the station. His hunting rifle had 12 rounds, plus a pistol with limited ammunition. More importantly, he had various tools and equipment that could be turned into weapons if necessary. As the first gray light of dawn crept through the storm clouds, Jake heard the sounds outside change. Whatever was out there had stopped circling and was now focused on his front door. He could hear scratching and scraping as something tested the locks and hinges. The alien observers managed to get their sensors working just as the confrontation began. Through the storm interference, they could see two heat signatures near the research station. The larger one belonged to the Nexuroth, while the smaller signature showed the human moving around inside his shelter. "This should be over quickly," Captain Zextar said, though his voice carried no satisfaction. "The creature will break in and kill the human within minutes." Dr. Velnara began recording everything for her scientific reports. She expected to document another example of the Nexuroth's hunting efficiency, providing valuable data about how the species adapted to new environments and prey. The attack came without warning. The Nexuroth smashed through Jake's reinforced door with a single powerful blow, sending splinters of wood and metal flying across the room. The creature stood in the doorway for a moment, its yellow eyes adjusting to the interior lighting. Jake got his first clear look at the monster that had been stalking him. It was bigger than anything he had imagined, with black armored scales covering its muscular body. The claws on its hands were as long as kitchen knives, while its mouth showed rows of razor-sharp teeth. This was no natural Earth predator. He fired his rifle from behind an overturned table, aiming for the creature's center of mass. The bullet struck the Nexuroth's chest, but bounced off its armored hide without causing significant damage. The monster roared and charged forward, swiping at Jake with its deadly claws. Jake rolled aside as the claws shredded the air where he had been standing. He had fought dangerous enemies before, but nothing like this. The creature was incredibly fast for its size, and its natural armor made his weapons nearly useless. He would have to find another way to survive. The Nexuroth destroyed Jake's furniture as it pursued him through the small station. Tables and chairs exploded into fragments as the creature's claws slashed through them. Jake stayed ahead of the monster by using his knowledge of the building's layout, ducking through doorways and around corners. In the laboratory section of the station, Jake found better weapons. He grabbed a container of liquid nitrogen used for preserving samples and threw it at the creature's feet. The super-cold liquid froze instantly on contact with the Nexuroth's scales, making it roar in pain and surprise. The alien observers watched in amazement as the human continued to fight, instead of simply dying. Most prey species either fled in panic or were killed in the first few seconds of an encounter. This human was actually adapting his tactics and using his environment as a weapon. "Impossible," Mordak muttered, studying the sensor readings. "The human should have been dead by now. How is he still fighting?" Jake used the creature's momentary discomfort to grab more improvised weapons. A container of acid meant for analyzing ice samples became a projectile that sizzled against the monster's hide. Electrical equipment sparked and crackled when he threw it at the Nexuroth's feet. The creature recovered quickly from each attack, but Jake could see that he was causing cumulative damage. The monster's movements were becoming slightly slower, and it seemed more cautious about charging into unknown areas of the station. Dr. Velnara's tentacles trembled with excitement as she recorded the battle. "The human is demonstrating remarkable adaptability. He's learning the creature's behavior patterns and adjusting his strategy in real time." The fight continued through the morning as Jake led the Nexuroth through every room of his station. He used broken glass from windows as cutting weapons, burning wood from his fireplace as torches, and even the building's electrical system to create sparks and flashes that confused his enemy. Each exchange left Jake more battered and bloodied. The creature's claws had sliced deep cuts across his arms and chest, and his left shoulder had been dislocated when he dove away from an attack. But he refused to give up, drawing on reserves of determination that surprised even himself. The Nexuroth had never encountered prey that fought back with such intelligence and persistence. On its homeworld, creatures either submitted to death or fled in terror. This human's refusal to accept defeat was something entirely new in the monster's experience. As the battle raged on, both combatants began showing signs of exhaustion. The alien observers realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. A primitive human was actually fighting the galaxy's most dangerous predator to a standstill, using nothing but his bare hands and improvised weapons. The battle had been raging for 3 hours when Jake realized that conventional weapons would never penetrate the Nexurath's armored hide. His rifle ammunition was gone, his improvised chemical weapons were running low, and the creature's natural healing abilities were slowly repairing the minor damage he had inflicted. But Jake had also learned valuable information about his enemy. The monster was incredibly strong and fast, but it lacked endurance for extended combat. Its heavy breathing and slightly slower movements told him that the Nexurath had evolved for quick kills, not prolonged battles. The creature's attack patterns were also becoming predictable. It preferred to charge straight forward, using its size and strength to overwhelm prey. When that failed, it would circle and try to attack from the sides. Jake had started to anticipate these moves, using the creature's momentum against it. In the wreckage of his laboratory, Jake found what he had been looking for. The emergency generator that powered his critical equipment sat in a reinforced corner of the building. More importantly, thick electrical cables connected it to the main power systems throughout the station. The alien observation team watched in fascination as the human began stripping insulation from electrical wires with his bare hands. His movements were precise despite his injuries, showing the kind of technical knowledge they had not expected from such a primitive species. "What is he doing?" Captain Zextar asked, studying the sensor readings. Dr. Velnara's tentacles moved rapidly over her controls as she analyzed Jake's actions. "He appears to be modifying the electrical systems. The human has been observing the creature's behavior and is preparing some kind of trap." Mordak shook his massive head in disbelief. "No prey species has ever shown such strategic thinking. During a life-or-death encounter, this human's mind continues to function clearly even under extreme stress." Jake wrapped the exposed wires around a metal chair leg, creating a crude but effective electrical weapon. The generator could produce enough power to stun even a large predator, though he would only get one chance to use it. The Nexurath was growing more cautious after hours of unexpected resistance. The creature stalked Jake through the ruins of his station, no longer rushing blindly into attacks. It had learned to respect this strange prey that refused to die quietly. Deep scratches covered its armored hide, and one of its eyes was swollen shut from a chemical burn. The human had proven far more dangerous than expected. Jake positioned himself near the generator, holding the improvised electrical weapon behind his back. He needed to lure the Nexurath into close combat, where he could use the creature's own aggression against it. Every instinct told him to stay away from those deadly claws, but this was his best chance for victory. The Nexurath sensed that the human was planning something new. The creature's predatory intelligence recognized the change in its prey's behavior. Instead of running and hiding, the human was now standing still and waiting. This could be a trap, but the monster's natural arrogance overcame its caution. No prey had ever successfully trapped a Nexurath, and this primitive human certainly could not be the first. It gathered its muscles and prepared for a final overwhelming charge that would end the battle. Jake watched the creature's body language, recognizing the signs that preceded its attacks. His military training had taught him to read enemy intentions, and the Nexurath's posture clearly showed it was about to strike. He gripped the electrified chair leg tighter, knowing he would have only seconds to act. The alien observers held their breath as the two combatants faced each other in the destroyed research station. Dr. Velnara's recording equipment captured every detail of what would become the most important scientific document in galactic history. The Nexurath charged with a roar that shook the building's remaining walls. Its claws extended fully as it closed the distance to its stubborn prey in 3 powerful bounds. This time, there would be nowhere for the human to run or hide. Jake waited until the creature was almost on top of him before moving. He rolled to the side at the last second, letting the Nexurath's momentum carry it past him. As the monster tried to turn and follow, Jake jammed the electrified chair leg against its wounded eye. Electricity coursed through the creature's body, causing its muscles to spasm uncontrollably. The Nexorath crashed into the generator housing, its nervous system overwhelmed by the electrical shock. For the first time since the battle began, the monster showed real fear. Jake pressed his advantage using the electrical weapon to drive the stunned creature back toward the station's outer wall. The Nexorath's movements were uncoordinated, its enhanced reflexes disrupted by the continuing electrical current. But the creature's natural toughness was already helping it recover. Jake could see the Nexorath's muscles regaining their coordination as its body adapted to the electrical attack. He had perhaps 30 seconds before the monster would be fully functional again. The alien team watched in amazement as Jake suddenly dropped his improvised weapon and grabbed the creature with his bare hands. To their sensors, it looked like the human had decided to commit suicide by grappling with the galaxy's most dangerous predator. "He's lost his mind," Captain Zexatar said. "The electrical attack failed, and now he's trying to fight the creature hand-to-hand." Dr. Velnara studied the readings more carefully. "Wait. Look at his positioning. The human is not attacking randomly. He's applying some kind of restraint technique." Jake wrapped his arms around the Nexorath's thick neck, using his knowledge of anatomy to find the creature's vulnerable points. Every species in the galaxy needed blood flow to the brain, and even the monster's armored hide could not protect the major arteries in its neck. The technique he was using came from his military training in close-quarters combat. A properly applied chokehold could render any opponent unconscious within minutes, regardless of their size or strength. The key was maintaining pressure on the correct points while avoiding the creature's deadly claws. The Nexorath thrashed wildly, trying to dislodge the human who clung to its back. Its claws raked the air as it spun and bucked, but Jake's position made it impossible for the creature to reach him with its primary weapons. Slowly but steadily, Jake tightened his grip around the monster's neck. His injured shoulder screamed with pain, and blood from his various wounds made his hands slippery. But he held on with the determination of a man who refused to accept defeat. The alien observers could not believe what their sensors were showing them. The human's vital signs indicated extreme exhaustion and blood loss, yet he continued to maintain his hold on the creature. His heart rate remained steady, and his breathing showed the controlled pattern of someone executing a practiced technique. Minutes passed as the two combatants remained locked together. The Nexorath's struggles grew weaker as Jake's chokehold restricted blood flow to its brain. The creature's movements became sluggish, then stopped altogether as unconsciousness finally claimed the galaxy's most feared predator. Jake held on for several more minutes, making sure the creature was truly unconscious before releasing his grip. The Nexorath collapsed to the floor, its massive body finally still. For the first time in hours, the research station was completely quiet. The human who had just accomplished the impossible sat back against the wall, breathing heavily and examining his wounds. He had defeated the Nexorath using nothing but his intelligence, determination, and bare hands. Jake sat in the ruins of his research station, staring at the unconscious form of the creature that had nearly killed him. Blood dripped from his wounds onto the floor, and his left arm hung useless at his side. But he was alive, and somehow he had won. The scientist in him overcame his exhaustion and pain. This creature was unlike anything on Earth, clearly from somewhere else in the universe. Its armored hide, incredible strength, and obvious intelligence made it a discovery that would change everything humanity knew about life in the galaxy. Instead of killing the unconscious monster, Jake began looking for ways to secure it safely. He found steel cables in his equipment storage and carefully wrapped them around the creature's limbs. Even unconscious, the Nexorath's muscles rippled with potential violence. Miles away, the alien observation team sat in stunned silence. Their advanced sensors had recorded every moment of the impossible battle, but none of them could fully believe what they had witnessed. A primitive human had defeated the galaxy's most dangerous predator using only his bare hands. Captain Zextar's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. This changes everything. We must revise all our classifications immediately. Dr. Velnara's tentacles trembled as she reviewed the recorded data. The human demonstrated capabilities that should not exist in a Category 7 species. His strategic thinking, pain tolerance, and physical endurance are all far beyond our projections. Mordak checked his weapons again, suddenly seeing them in a new light. If a single unarmed human could defeat a Nexurath, what could an armed group of them accomplish? His warrior instincts told him that humanity was not the weak species they had assumed. The storm began to clear as morning progressed, allowing the alien team to move closer to Jake's position. Their ship's medical scanners showed that the human was badly injured but still alive. More importantly, he had somehow managed to capture their escaped prisoner alive. Jake heard aircraft approaching through the thinning clouds. At first, he thought it might be an early supply plane, but the sound was wrong. No human aircraft made that kind of deep, thrumming noise. He grabbed his pistol with his good hand and moved to the window. The alien ship landed in the clearing outside his destroyed station, its hull gleaming silver against the white snow. Jake watched in amazement as several figures emerged from the craft. They were clearly not human, but they moved with obvious intelligence and purpose. Captain Zextar approached the station carefully, his hands visible and empty of weapons. Behind him, Dr. Velnara floated in her portable water tank, while Mordak kept watch from a respectful distance. They had decided that first contact was now inevitable. Jake stepped outside to meet them, still holding his pistol, but not aiming it at anyone. His scientific curiosity was stronger than his fear, and these beings had made no threatening moves. Besides, after fighting the monster in his station, he doubted that anything could surprise him anymore. "We mean you no harm," Captain Zextar said, his translation device converting his words into English. "We have come to retrieve the creature that attacked you." Jake studied the alien captain, noting the obvious intelligence in his insect-like eyes. "That thing belongs to you?" "It was our prisoner," Zextar admitted. "The creature escaped during our landing and killed 2 of our crew members. We have been tracking it for days." Dr. Velnara moved closer, her tentacles gesturing toward the research station. "We observed your battle with the Nexurath. Your survival is unprecedented in galactic records." Jake lowered his pistol slightly. "Galactic records?" "You are not alone in the universe," Velnara explained. "We represent the Galactic Council, an alliance of intelligent species that spans many star systems. We came to study your world and classify your species." The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. Humanity was not alone, and these aliens had been studying Earth like scientists studying animals in a zoo. "What kind of classification?" Captain Zextar's mandibles clicked with what might have been embarrassment. "We initially rated humans as Category 7, a primitive species with limited potential for advancement." "And now?" Jake asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Mordak stepped forward, his forearms spread in a gesture of respect. "No Category 7 species has ever defeated a Nexurath in single combat. We must completely revise our understanding of human capabilities." Dr. Velnara consulted her data recordings. "Your battle demonstrates qualities we have never seen combined. In a single species, you possess the strategic intelligence of a Cerebran, the persistence of a Marathonian, and the adaptive capability of a shapeshifter." Jake looked back at his ruined station, where the unconscious alien predator lay bound with steel cables. "I just did what I had to do to survive." "That attitude itself is remarkable," Captain Zextar observed. "Most species either flee from superior predators or accept death when defeat seems certain. Humans appear to possess an unbreakable will to survive." The alien medical officer emerged from their ship, carrying advanced healing equipment. Jake allowed them to treat his wounds, fascinated by technology that sealed cuts and mended bones in minutes. The medical officer seemed equally fascinated by human anatomy and resilience. As Jake's injuries healed, he learned more about the galaxy beyond Earth. The Galactic Council included thousands of species, each with their own strengths and specialties. Some were brilliant scientists, others were skilled engineers, and a few were renowned warriors. But none had ever shown the combination of traits that Jake had demonstrated. "What happens now?" Jake asked as they loaded the still unconscious Nexu-Wrath onto the alien ship. Captain Zextar studied the human who had changed everything they thought they knew about his species. "We must return to the Council and report our findings. Humanity will be reclassified as an apex persistence predator species." Dr. Velnara's tentacles moved excitedly. "The Council will want to establish formal diplomatic relations with your people. Your species has qualities that could benefit the entire galaxy." Jake thought about his destroyed research station and the impossible battle he had just survived. His quiet life studying ice patterns was over, replaced by something much larger and more important. "I should come with you," he said finally. "Humanity needs to understand what's out there, and you need to understand us better than your initial classification suggested." Mordak nodded approvingly. "Any species that can produce warriors like you deserves our respect and alliance." As the alien ship lifted off from Earth's surface, Jake watched his home planet shrink in the viewing screen. He had started the week as a lonely scientist studying climate change. Now he was humanity's first ambassador to a galaxy full of intelligent life. Behind him, the Nexu-Wrath stirred in its reinforced containment cell. The creature's yellow eyes opened and focused on Jake through the transparent barrier. For a moment, predator and prey regarded each other silently. Then Jake smiled and walked away. He had defeated the galaxy's most dangerous monster with his bare hands, proving that humanity belonged among the stars. The Nexu-Wrath could only watch as its former prey took his place as Earth's representative to the cosmos. Captain Zextar joined Jake at the viewing screen as Earth disappeared behind them. "Your battle will be studied for generations. You have changed how every species in the galaxy sees humanity." Jake nodded, thinking about the future that lay ahead. Humanity would face many challenges as they joined the galactic community, but they would meet them the same way he had faced the Nexu-Wrath, with intelligence, determination, and an absolute refusal to surrender. The stars awaited, and humanity was ready.